Estás viendo Canal América, televisión dominicana para el mundo.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard. You don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart. Yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got, but the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your fears.
Welcome to A Time for Truth show. I'm your host, Dr. Bernard Fialkoff, and it's a pleasure to have you back with us again. Today, we're going to actually have a show, a tribute to all our mothers. Those women who brought us into this world. Those women who cared for us and did so much and do so much. Our wives, obviously their daughters who become, mothers, and who actually, as the movie it said, kind of a funny thing, but so true. The man is the head of the house, but the woman is the neck, and she turns the head. So today we have a very important show, and so we'll get right into this. And Buddha, if you can, I want to introduce our guest today, Sharon J Hill. And if you can put her pictures up on the screen so our viewers can see, here you go. Sharon is the 2020 League of Women Voters Marietta Cobb Woman of Action. She is the former National Vice President of Development of National Women's Political Caucus. Mrs. Hill was the 2019 Community Relations Aide for Representative Mary Frances Williams, the 2019 Cobb County NAACP MLK Day Living the Dream awardee, the Zion Baptist Church 2019 Award for Unsung Hero. She's been very involved in voter rights and voter engagement coordinator for the Zion Social Justice Ministry and the Georgia Community Coalition. She received the 2016 Gold Presidential Volunteer Service Award and serves as a voter empowerment coordinator, People's Agenda, GCPA. Sharon created the Know Before You Go campaign to highlight the Georgia My Voter Page resources and has facilitated workshops and presentations on voting, civic engagement, youth after-school programs, faith center empowerment. She's a Voting Rights Alliance and National Commission for Voter Justice member, and Sharon is the co-host of a national weekly nonpartisan equal rights amendment education program, a show called The Call. Mrs. Hill married her high school sweetheart, and they've been together for 41 years. They met in Louisville, Georgia, and the couple have 6 children and 6 grandchildren. And Sharon touts the back to basics formula of conscious conversation and being our sisters and brothers keeper for evoking community and voter engagement. And Buddha, if you can bring her on the screen, I would like to bid a warm welcome to Sharon Hill. Hello, Sharon.
Oh, well, hello, everyone. Good evening, and thank you, Dr. Van. It's now a time for truth.
Yes, it's a pleasure to have you, and it's really important because I know how much my mother did for me. There were times I wasn't too happy, but she laid the law down. And the woman is such an important part and really holds the fabric of our culture together. So I think today's show is important because, there are things I really don't know either and that you'll bring out. So the first thing I wanted to do, Sharon, is ask you, what stimulated you to be such a human rights advocate in your life?
Well, it is actually, Dr. Ben, what you are speaking to and hailing this evening, and that is my mother, Billy Ruth Garrett Jackson Holliday, the late Billy Ruth. She, when I was like 9 years old, but even before then, we were engaged in the community, the Red Circle, the Sunshine Club, the Girl Scouts, all of that. I was a part of a young usher at church, uh, attending, and my grandfather was a pastor. He pastored 4 churches in Canton, Mississippi, and the neighboring towns, and so I would go with him. I received a piano, an organ, one of those electric organs for Christmas, and stayed home from church. I didn't make that early morning service that day to learn how to play. And although I never really learned all the way with chords, I would play at my grandfather's church with the one hand, what we call country churches. But my mother would make sure, of course, of putting me on program. And she brought home a book of poems one day and said, pick one, learn it. I put you on program for Sunday. So back when a time when we had the demonstrations in the homes, the community rallied and made sure of leadership development in our community. And so having the etiquette dinner parties, luncheons and everything. And so with that, it became the Red Circle Girls. We actually made the program, invited people to speak as well, and participated as opening and providing scripture and introducing people. And so we had that level, when I say back to basic, of the senior, the adult, the young adult, and then the teen and the young person, where everyone was accountable for each other and responsible to each other. So that is the core from whence I come.
Beautiful. It makes so much sense. One of the things I always like to point out is we have so much in our world technologically and materially, but what you're saying is so important because, if you're missing that responsibility and brotherhood, sisterhood, taking care of each other and realizing, this is something I realize is that a lot of things I could never do if we didn't have other people around us.
Right. That's right. No man is an island unto himself. And the Harambe code of treating others as you would be treated, like to be treated. And thus, we are our sisters and brothers keepers. And look what we have been brought to during these last, 18 months. We definitely have become, if we weren't before, we are now. Even with everything else, all other tensions and other things going on, at the core, we have shown our humankind that we are our sisters and brothers keepers.
Absolutely. It's so important that we actually keep progressing and that this keeps going in the right direction. With all of the advances we have technologically, we have to keep our bonds and so that it doesn't go out of control, which at times, unfortunately, we can see with what's happened. There's been some things that have happened that have been a little bit off the track. But, I want to ask you something because I know you're the expert at this. So tell our viewers and actually fill me in also. So what is the status now as far as women's rights in the workplace, against sexual discrimination? Please fill us in on that.
Okay, and so I'm going to coin the phrase that our good friend, Brother Bobby Hunter, has actually come into, and our other ERA, Equal Rights Amendment advocates think that it is an awesome thing. So instead of us looking at the fact that we need 12 more states to ratify, we actually have ratified the Equal Rights Amendment that was first introduced in 1923.
Wow.
And it was completely ratified by the required 38 states. That's 2/3 majority of our Congress. And so, of our states, that was the requirement for that when Congress passed the Equal Rights Amendment, and they passed it on to the states. And so it took this long for us to get fully ratified, and that was done 2020 in Virginia. Virginia did it. Virginia brought it home on January 27th. And so we're looking to have a great time. But guess what? Yes, it's ratified, but it is not certified and it hasn't been published. And here we are coming up on the 2 year. And so those 24 words that your rights shall not be denied or abridged by this state or any state on account of sex. So it is as it is right now in the preamble of that amendment, there is a deadline. And so since 1982, because it was then in 79, extended, and it was a push all across the country. We had Dick Gregory with the women and other men with the women marching and speaking before Congress to extend the deadline. It was from 79 to 82, but we still only got 35 states done. And so, yes, that is what happened. And then not until Nevada ratified, and then Illinois ratified, and then, of course, that year, have mercy, everything was upended by from one health issue to another, and but we made it happen. We made it happen. Everybody across the country for Virginia. However, again, without the Equal Rights Amendment, no matter what, let us be clear. Just as late as 50 years ago, I should say early, as 50 years ago, women could not apply for a credit card, buy a car, buy furniture without their husband or their father's signature. See, we forget about these things. And of course, you understand, you know the quote that, those that do not understand the history are doomed to repeat it. And so we have actually been in it all this time. So, yes, females own businesses, own networks, are billionaires. But what is the law of the land? Females are still considered chattel. Abigail Adams asked them when they began composing the Constitution to don't forget the ladies. And let us remember that even when Black men got the right to vote with the 15th Amendment, how hard could it have been, Dr. Ben, to say male and female voting district?
Sure.
Just that, putting it in, but it only cites male voting district. So we were left out again, left on the wayside. And so here we are, yes, fully ratified, but because of the preamble citing that it needed to have been done, and we actually had some states that pulled out, as we would call it, rescinded. But that is not allowed. That is not allowed. And so while that has been a matter of record, we're still standing. And what we need now is for the Senate to vote to remove the deadline. The House already has, but the Senate needs to, for it to happen. And then, of course, the archivist needs to certify and then publish it. It is already 2 years come January 27th, 2022. And what we will deal with, and that's the other thing, because people want to throw this under ERA and that under ERA, let us be real clear. The fight that you're hearing now, where the Freedom to Vote Act needs to be voted on, as well as the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, as well as any of the others. They passed the vote. How do you pass an equality act but not the Equal Rights Amendment? So we are remiss in what we do as policy. And it is for all of us to stand, and we need everyone to stand with us, because our rights shall not be denied or abridged by this state or any state on account of sex. Well, on account of sex means for any and every one. And especially, because we have to ask right now with that legislation, HR1 and HR4, we're asking, please don't discriminate. But at the same time, all you have to do is get this passed that prohibits discrimination. I will send you to the late Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia, who often cited his decisions brimmed on the fact that the Equal Rights Amendment was not in the Constitution. And that is, as we are asking, please don't discriminate, because that's what the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act is about, right? Don't discriminate, don't disenfranchise. The Freedom to Vote Act, look, don't allow this. We need this to happen. We need that to happen. Well, even without the preclearance in the Voting Rights Advancement Act that was gutted in 2013, of course, the Shelby versus Holder decision, and everything now is open season on voter suppression and disenfranchisement. It is still, you're asking to please not discriminate. But the Equal Rights Amendment firmly sets it, because Justice Scalia cited that there is nothing in the U.S. Constitution that prohibits discrimination. It's a simple thing. Nothing. That's why we have to ask. Please don't discriminate. Please vote, put this in. If the Equal Rights Amendment were in the U.S. Constitution.
You know what?
That's right.
You gave me a very thorough understanding of what's going on, and it's interesting because when you were going over your upbringing and your family and the religious background, and which in our culture for some reason in years it seems to be diminishing, and it seems like as we lose that spirituality, that religious fabric, or what's right and wrong, that like you said, these things where bigotry come out, and which really don't do good for anyone. I actually wanted to put something on that I thought is a beautiful quote about women. And Buddha, if you can put that up on the screen, please. I'd like to just read it to the viewers, and it's about the importance of women in our society. And, so if you could put that on, Buddha, that would be great. And I want to read that slide that we prepared. And here we go. And this is actually from Ron Hubbard. And he basically, what he writes here, and I just took out a few sections, but basically a race which specializes in women for menial purposes. Obviously, that's not a good thing. The arts and skills of a woman, the creation and inspiration of which she is capable, in which here and there, in isolated places in our culture, she still manages to effect, in spite of the ruin and decay of a man's world which spreads around her, must be brought newly and fully into life. These arts and skills and creation and inspiration is her beauty, just as she is the beauty of mankind. I thought that those words by Hubbard were so beautiful, but to me, really, they hit home, because Sometimes when things happen in my life and I think back to some things that my mother said to me, I got to tell you a funny story. It was high school, and it was she was talking to me about succeeding, and I told her, well, those guys genetically, they know how to play music. She was talking about some friends, some people I knew, and said that's who they are. And my mother got upset with me, and I'm Cuban born, so she used some words in Spanish, which basically I'll tame down to say, well, that's because you need to sit more on your rear and study. Ooh. And it's interesting because I got to tell you the consequence of that. She hit home that day. I never forgot that. And eventually when I went to my dental profession in my dental school, because of what she did that day, I ended up being the class valedictorian. And,
oh my goodness.
It was definitely not genetic, but I definitely did apply what she said to me that day. So, I think what you're...
Pay attention. Yes. We need to pay attention. I mean, this is the thing, Dr. Ben, what isn't paid attention to, okay, is that you pay $2.50 to get your shirt dry cleaned. Okay, well, any female that puts in a blouse or her shirt will pay $12 or more. And do you understand? I've spoken to the cleaners, and he said, "Oh well, you see, this happened. They adjusted. What happened was because women were in the workforce, right? Had begun to be in the workforce. They would take the men's shirts to the cleaners all the time, and pretty much did their own, right? And so, as designs changed, so they changed the machinery, how to put the buttons on the cuff, right? To whatever design or structure for the man's shirt. And so my question to this professional was, excuse me, we have many more designs, and that's what they're saying, is that because they have to change something out because, of course, females' buttons are on the left side and men's it's a buttonhole on the left side. And so because of that has to be changed. But get this, if you changed all of the different apparatus for men, why could not have the same attention to detail been done for females? And it is because there's nothing for us to stand up about. It doesn't matter because we are what? Just property. And so that's why we can have a law that we're trying to get, while we have to beg and march and protest for Violence Against Women Act. Why? Can you tell me? The man who helped ratify the 19th Amendment, Harry T. Byrne in Tennessee, was against women's voting rights. He had the red flower on, and his mother, though, sent a note and told him to not forget the ladies, to not forget and be a good boy. So it came down to his vote, and he voted for it. And that is history. All it takes is that one vote. Will you be the change that needs to happen? And that is what we need to pose to our senators. Honor your mother. Honor your daughter. Will you do that? Will you stand? You just gave that poem, that speech, or message from Brother Hubbard. And so with that, as it speaks to where women stand or should be and how we should be, the difference is that it's just perception, because just as we're being told what to do with your body, which is about basic health care, what it comes down to, women are the majority household leaders, heads of households, and thus, because we already make less than men, and when we get down to Black women, Hispanic, Latino, Asian, we have a different month. It takes a Black woman all the way to August to have an equal pay day to a white male.
Wow.
And so on and so forth. Okay? And so again, the
Sharon,
whole fight.
I'm sorry to interrupt you for
oh,
a
I know our
second.
time.
But you know what? And I see there's so much to talk about, but we're getting near the end of the show, and I wanted to make sure, because you have so much to cover here, I wanted you to get a chance to give a concluding remark of what you really want the viewers to take home today. Go ahead.
Take home that all it takes is one, and that is your time, the action that you put in to what must be done. Do what you know needs to be done, and that is standing up, not just for you, not just for your family, but for everyone. We are one. Whatever happens to one directly affects everyone else indirectly. Believe it. It is what makes our communities go round. And so we must pay attention. We must be engaged. We must engage others, and we must stand together. Thank you so very much. It is always a pleasure, Dr. Ben. Thank you so very much for having me. We need to know that, as I would say, the Shirley Chisholm would say that if you're not at the table, bring a folding chair. But see, when you say that, you need to understand behind that is that's to any table. That's why you need the folding chair. Wherever you go, you can set that chair down and you can be the difference. With intentional influence, occupy your purpose. Thank you.
Well, you know what? Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure to have you. And I think that obviously all of us realize how much all of our mothers have done for us and how much our wives for our families. And so that it just makes sense that we should put them where they belong. So for those of you out there who are watching, may you have a great day when you go home. Make sure you give a good hug and kiss to your wife, your daughters, and call your mother. My mother always got upset with me I didn't call her. So this show is for her and for all those women out there. So have a great day. And from A Time for Truth, we will see you next time.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard. You don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart. Yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got, but the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your feet